hope everyone is having a great day. Now, as you may have seen from my past community posts, and if it's not obvious from the title, I have a few issues with Empires SMP Season 2. It's not just me either. I've seen a lot of people express their issues with the season as well. Don't get me wrong, Season 2 isn't awful. I have friends who greatly enjoy the series. It's not terrible. There are just issues about it that I'd like to discuss. It can help people with their own storytelling and possibly shine light on why some people dislike this season compared to Season 1. Before this begins, I'd like to state that this is in no way meant to be hate towards the creators. They are lovely people. I have spent quite a lot of money on Jimmy's channel memberships and his merch, so believe me when I say I have no ill will towards them. Also, before I get any comments saying, you have no idea what you're talking about, I have more Empires SMP's videos than all the creators have put together, and I'm applying for college scholarships and writing. So with all that out of the way, let's begin. Story writing is one of those things anyone can do, yet small mistakes can ruin the whole thing. Obviously, they aren't bad story writers because Season 1 was a hit and left the fandom with an amazing story, so what went wrong in Season 2? First off, placing it after Season 1 and then just leaving it there. For the part minus sausage and small bits of Shovel and mentions of Pearl, the fact that Season 1 takes place 1,000-ish years before Season 2 has no impact on the server lore. It's there for world building. Yes, world building is great, but being told this fact leaves the viewers longing for this information to be used in some shape or form more than just haha funny reference. Which is typically why you'll see Sausage being praised more for his lore, as he's using the viewer's knowledge of the timeline that's been put in place to his advantage instead of leaving it as a red herring. I've asked my friend Shadow, you can find Z's channel in the description below for Dark's view on this point. I personally feel as if they may as well have just not had made it canonically after Season 1 with how little they reference it. It feels as if it was just something that was said and not an actual part of the plot. When giving information to viewers about your story or world, you fall back on that to let that information pay off. Otherwise, you're just mentioning information that could have been switched out to something more meaningful. This isn't a giant issue compared to the points I'll get to, however, it is something that's left me personally dissatisfied. When receiving the information of the timeline, I was really hoping for it to play out more than just a nod to it now and then. I'm glad that Sausage plays out the information, however, it would have been nice to see other creators play out as well. Obviously not do exactly what Sausage is doing, as that would get annoying after a while of everyone relying so much on Season 1, but there is a way to balance it out that would have been nice to see. The next point is quite targeted. While I started off Season 2 hype, my hype quickly fell off. This was due to multiple reasons, but what started my distancing was the lore jokes. Honestly, they are really repetitive and stopped being funny after the 5th one. And then multiple creators started doing it. It honestly felt like the entire series was becoming a joke. Now, I get that they may still be funny to some people, and it's an inverse of Joel's non-lore joke from Season 1. What makes these jokes so different? They downplay what lore we do get, which isn't that much besides Sausage, False, Pixel, and Shovel. They have the most lore as far as I'm aware, and since everyone is joining in on a trend of joking about the lore instead of just one person means you really can't get away from it. SMPs don't need to have lore to be enjoyable. Most of these creators have SMPs that don't have lore and are well liked. Yet when you do have lore like Empires SMP does, playing it down and making it into a joke when you know your viewers enjoy lore gets tiring after a while and can downplay the actual big moments as they feel like just another joke. I've asked my friend Phantom, Lava's link can also be found in the description below underneath Shadows, to give me Skulk's view on the lore jokes. It's very overused and got annoying real quick after the 50th joke. It's basically every other sentence the joke comes up, it got watered down real quick. Conversations with other friends turn up the same results, everyone agreeing along the lines of, the jokes got annoying pretty quickly and started to get tiring. Not everything needs to have a serious tone, yet when that joking tone spreads across the series, it stops bringing you into the story and starts pushing you out of it. Speaking of lore, that's my next point. The lore that we have been given and how much of it has seemed to be tossed aside. The point A, the dragon was a great start into the series. Bam! Immediately sprung into action. which was an issue for season 1. The long build-up with no main story, yet it seemed as if we were going to be immediately introduced to main story lore. However, then the dragon was just Ollie, which is cool. However, the way they played it out made it seem like it was so much more, and the fans thought they would be playing on the timeline that they had given us, yet it was Ollie, which I'll get to why I have an issue with that in a bit. Again, with Ollie, him being a forgotten character was there, and then it wasn't. It was a good plot point for his character, but it wasn't expanded on. It was left behind. We've been giving so many bad characters, yet no main antagonist. I know the story isn't over yet, but it's been 5 months. Yet it seems like we don't have any real work that connects everyone. It feels like everyone is playing by themselves and not working together on lore. It feels like they are throwing ideas in, waiting for something to stick, yet they never give it enough time to actually hold. Shovel has stuck to the Witches Academy, which is great. Yet when others haven't, it feels like you're just relying on one point of view, just like Sausage for relevance on the timeline. I know it's hard to judge this without the series being concluded yet, but it feels like we should have had something by now. I've asked my friend Himi for input. Erin's link is also in the description, on how it feels about lore being thrown away and or being moved too fast. Villain arc opportunities for a few people such as Timmy and Ollie. Characters like Jimmy who have been teased and bullied have a chance to become more, especially since it was even explicitly said by certain creators mentioning a Jimmy villain arc, which can bring false hope just as a timeline issue, leaving longing for what could have happened. I'm glad the Jimmy flip Joel story arc had a finish, but it left a lot of what could have been. Now Ollie. Look, I love Ollie. His editing is great and his videos are fun. However, Ollie's character on the other hand, quote, it doesn't really feel like he's there though. He feels like a guest, end quote. A quote from my friend Ash as we discussed this topic within our friend group, and I have to agree. I and my friends understand that Ollie's upload schedule and editing process does not give him that much time to post, and because of a fully fleshed out character, yet for some reason he felt more like a character in Afterlife than in Empires. Even with the limited screen time, he still felt more like someone within the story than just someone a part of the story. My best comparison and the best way I know how to describe this is Miraculous Ladybug's character Felix. Before season 5, he was a character that was seen 3 times and immediately changed the flow of the story and quickly became a loved character among fans. Because when he was there, he made it count. Because he wasn't seen so often, he had to make an impact to be someone, which is always issue within the SMP. He's really just comic relief. Which is fine, but not fine when you come into a story as a lore piece, and then just lose that to comic relief. It makes the viewers lost on the character's place within the story. Imagine if Zornoth came into the story, doing his evil shenanigans, and then just started doing silly little pranks, and hanging out with the roars and having tea time. Weird and hard to imagine, right? It's because he came in as a lore device, or a lore character, and stayed that way. Ollie was a character with lore, and then lost that surprisingly quickly, which is why he doesn't feel like a character and more like a guest. Like the other points, I've asked my friend Ori for its opinion on Ollie's character within Empires SMP Season 2. Her channel will of course be linked along with everyone else's. Ollie's character feels unnecessary to the lore, as he contributed little to nothing besides the dragon being killed, which in whole is a totally different problem. Yes, I love Ollie as a person, but his character just doesn't fit in with the season/lore. He just feels forgotten and never expanded on, you know? I barely even remember his character, little to nothing. Honestly, it was that forgettable. I even forgot he was in the SMP, honestly. Overall, his character would have fit better if they had done more memorable things, like a villain arc, something. Not just him existing there. His character feels like he was just thrown in there so Ollie could be in the season. Bro feels so forgettable. Genuinely, he does feel like his character only existed so he could join the SMP, actually. Me and Ori share a lot of the same views when it comes to Ollie, agreeing that his character doesn't seem ready. As lovely of a person that Ollie is, his character in Empire Season 2 just doesn't seem there. He feels like he could have been more, and we've lost out as of now. Now, the moment I completely jumped away from watching the series in a watching sense was the crossover. Now, I really dislike talking bad about the crossover as I know it took a while to plan, and I respect the effort, yet I have my issues with it that I'd like to outline. The crossover is an amazing idea. I think it was a plan to get viewership up, yet where they messed up was how they went about the crossover, not the crossover itself. The crossover felt more like a YouTube collab than a series collab or a lore collab. The crossover could have been so much more. And it may just be because I'm looking through it through a lore perspective. It would have been awesome if they played into the idea of servers actually crashing together, but instead they just acted as if they all knew each other when in canon they don't. Jim had a great lore point for her character, yet it felt wasted. I personally feel as if Sausage and False did the rift the best. It was entertaining to watch them actually play with the logistics of what would happen with the rift and between certain characters that they weren't aware existed. The rift had so many possibilities, and it felt like we never got to see them expanded on. Now, this isn't me just complaining because I don't watch Hermitcraft. There's another crossover within the series that I quite enjoy with the characters that I don't watch. I'm talking about Llama Owen. Instead of Scott just acting like he already knew Owen, he played into the story just as Owen did, doing his best llama turned human persona. It's a really enjoyable part of Scott's series because he plays into the story aspect of it, which is what the Hermitcraft crossover was missing. I've asked both my friends Jasper and Great for their inputs, as both also stopped watching during the crossover. Both channels will be provided in the description. Jasper said, "The Rift was actually a good part of the lore. It was genuinely interesting, however the crossover was iffy. It really depends on if you have time to watch all the creators and keep up with everything. But in my opinion, all the new creators made it less interesting. Well, of course, it gave new lore to Jim and False. It could have gone farther with it, and there was a lot more potential. Obviously, the creators are great, but I feel as though it became too large of a group. It's a similar situation to Ollie. They came there and it didn't feel like they had that much of a purpose. The Rift just got them into the SMP and they didn't add much. Plus the Rift War was dropped soon after." And Grape replied to me with, "I watched both Hermitcraft and Empires before the crossover with the Rift, and I enjoyed it. During the episodes before the crossover, and when they were hinting at it, I looked forward to the crossover if it was going to happen, which it did. But when the crossover started, it was kind of I guess there wasn't much lore in their interactions, and honestly, I'm more interested in the separate SMPs. Well, other than Sausage reaction to seeing Pearl, but that was quickly put aside as, oh, it's probably just a cosplayer. I would have enjoyed maybe Sausage believing that it was actually St. Pearl and treating her like an actual god, like doing her favors for her, giving her gifts, etc. Just it not being pushed aside so quickly. Adding on to that, yes, it's an SMP, and the creators don't always have to be in lore mode, but the crossover had a story on how they got to the other servers, so now when the Hermits got there, everyone already knew each other and no one really introduced himself. It felt kind of boring. I watched more for the lore, and the Rift did introduce lore with the SMP multiverse, but that was outbalanced by how the content creators didn't really pay attention that much to it. So after the first or second episode of the crossover, I just stopped watching. This was also affected by finding new content to consume, but even if I hadn't found new things to watch, I honestly don't think I would have continued watching, because it just got boring for me and lost its flair. Both had similar issues as my own, going back to my second point of lore being dropped or pushed to the side too quickly, leaving dissatisfied viewers. Obviously, we don't expect constant lore. I don't even do that in my own videos. TV shows don't do that either. You need a breather. Yet when big events happen, you expect big lore. It just feels like I was longing for more during the crossover. This point and my point about lore being rushed kind of go hand in hand. The story feels jumpy, which is in part due to the lore being rushed and or pushed aside. It leaves plot points feeling unfinished. Now, as far as we know as of now, those plot lore points may be focused on, but it feels like they are making points and then just leaving them leaves the narrative to feel jumpy almost. Have you ever been telling a story and then you realize midway through you need to tell another story, but you actually need to tell two stories for that one story to make sense? In a way, that's how Empires SMP Season 2 feels. It's nice to leave hints around for future relevance, however, it feels too spread around and not expanded on enough. It's just the pacing that feels off. I've asked my friend Mello to give a few words about their views on Empires SMP Season 2's pacing. Faye's channel, as the others, will be linked down in the description. The pacing just feels much more slower than Season 1. Season 1 was a little slow but entertaining with all the different lore and events. But Season 2 is just the same every time, and normally some big lore event would have happened by now, but it hasn't. Not sure if you would count the Rift as an event, but even if that big event did happen, it was just the same as normal. It's just really repetitive for being what we assume is a lore SMP due to the past season. Having a repetitive storyline is fine with static shows such as Phineas and Ferb, and other shows like that, but when you have a story that is moving and growing, having the same repetitive, still aspects, doesn't really work. Now, after saying all this, I would like you to throw it out the window. Not too far, but enough to where it's outside the doors. Weird, right? I just spent almost 16 minutes explaining why Season 2 is bad, and what's gone wrong with it. Why am I saying throw it all out the window? Because all of this wouldn't have mattered if this was Season 1. Season 1 changed the way we view Season 2, and it's not even Season 2's fault. People don't like change, especially with things we like. Seeing Season 2 be completely different from Season 1 drove some people off, which was never fair to Season 2 in the first place. Season 1 helped me get back into Minecraft. It helped me start my channel again and gain some great memories with friends I met because of it. Season 2 is just the add-on. Yes, Season 2 has pacing issues and is repetitive in some aspects, but it's just a silly little Minecraft series. I wouldn't be here judging this SMP so hard if it wasn't the aftermath of Season 1. Season 1 has its own issues. It is far from perfect. Yet, because it left an impression on people's minds, it changed how people view Season 2. Because it's not as lore-filled, it gets criticism. It gets so much criticism because it's a Season 2, because it's compared to so much to Season 1. What did Season 2 do wrong? A few things. But the bigger question is, where did we go wrong? Yes, the SMPs are connected, but Season 1 isn't how things must go. It isn't the rule book. Season 2 is its own story. It has its issues, but Season 2 can still be enjoyable without being Season 1. Maybe that's the real issue with Empires SMP Season 2.